Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Meri, a singer-songwriter from Bristol. How you doing, Meri?
Hey, yeah, how you doing? I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Everyone's watching again. Happy New Year to you. It's the first one of the
Happy
year.
New
Really
Year.
excited. um,
2022, bring it on.
Absolutely, yeah. Hopefully, it's better than the last couple of years, eh? So yeah, let's get right into it. So people that don't know you, do you want to talk a little bit about how you first got into music and your musical history and background?
Sure. So I first get into music in my shower, singing the tunes. No, but without joking, I first started with my guitar, playing guitar. That was the first whole instrument I started playing, and then afterwards I started kind of singing along with the guitar. And then one day I got to a rehearsal with friends, and we always used to meet once a week in the place. And we didn't have the singer didn't come for some reason. So after lots of bottles of wine and all that stuff that we do usually when we're just like jamming around and everything, I just grabbed the microphone and I was like, you know what, fuck singer, I'm gonna sing now. And then this guy literally came up to me and he was like, all right, you were shit tonight, but he said, if you work on your voice, it kind of sounds good. Like your voice is not that bad. So then I started reflecting on that and I was like, okay. And then I started like listening to like Adele tunes. This was like 10 years ago or something. First Adele tunes, and I started like repeating afterwards, or like, and then listening to all the tunes and just repeating the audio of like the singer. So I used to like pause like a certain phrase and like repeat it and then pause it again and then repeat it. It was just like a whole loop. And then then I just got into singing, and then it just came naturally. And then I went to sing lessons and everything, and then I just went into it and I started performing guitar and voice together. Because initially when you start with an instrument, it's difficult to combine them both together, it's difficult to do two things at the same time. But then I like realized, and I managed to like, okay, this is something I want to do, and then it just kicked off. So that's how it all kicked off from the beginning. And then I started gigging, like you just put yourself out there to people, you just like listen to what people have to say about it, and every time people were going like, yeah, this is good, you just carry on and you just kept doing it. So that's kind of a little story.
And how did you first start like writing songs from there? So you obviously learned guitar first, then you picked up some vocals, had some lessons. But how did you first start composing and writing music?
So basically what I did, when I was 19, I moved to Portugal and Lisbon. And then the third Lisbon, this is kind of like funny story, because I went partying the day before in Lisbon. There was my friend of mine, he was showing me around. And then the day after, I felt so bad that I spent so much money the night before. And I was like, if I carry on spending this money, I'm not going to manage to enjoy this city. So I went around bars in Lisbon asking if I could play, but I had no repertoire. Like I had like nothing. I just knew like four chords, pop chords, and I was like, fuck it, I need to get money. So I walked into this bar and I was like, hey, I'm a singer, I just do a couple of tunes. And he in that moment was like, listen, someone just cancelled, and this moment here, I don't know what happened, but yeah, whatever, just let me hear something about you, and you're on tonight playing. Have you got 2 hours of kind of repertoire? Have you got 2 hours? And I was like, yeah, sure I do, man, like no problem. And I didn't. I only had like 40 minutes or something. And then I went home in like 2 hours and I learned all songs with four chords. So like Bob Marley, I don't know, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, like all those songs with four chords that you knew them because you sang them throughout your years. So I just learned all of those, and I was like, yeah, okay, this is simple. And I just went to the gig by myself, and that was the first gig. So I started gigging, and in for like 4 years I just did covers in bars and like weddings. I did everything. But then I arrived to a point after a couple of years and I was like, no, I don't want to do covers anymore. I want to write my own stuff. Because then I think that when you start gigging, you need to kind of like play around with like covers and like unstructure them a bit and then make them your own, and kind of figure out what you know and what you like and what you don't like, what genre you like, and then you can build your own identity through that. So from my personal experience, I think that playing all those covers all those years made me, okay, now I want to write this tune. So there's like 4 years later, I started, I was just gigging like every day. And yeah, one day I was like, okay, I don't want to gig covers anymore. I want to do my own stuff. So that's like 3 years ago, when maybe 4, 4 years ago, that I was like, okay, now I'm going to start writing my own stuff. And then 4 years ago, I started like, okay, this is only my stuff now. So that's how it kicked off. But I needed to gig a lot to understand that.
It's good that you had that ground in gigging though. Like it came like the other way around almost. So like by the time you got to play like your own songs live, you already had all that gigging experience to draw on. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like it was approached from the other way around.
Yeah, it is tricky. It's very tricky because I see you when you play a cover, you just like play it. I remember I used to like learn a cover the night before, and then I used to just play it. And people, I mean, it was just something you just did it, like you didn't think about it. But when it was your own song, it was more like, okay, there's more pressure. This is my own song, and any reaction, even if I see like a minimum reaction of someone, this is gonna like, I'm gonna reflect on this for like weeks, so this is something that I was like, but it's good because I think that gigging just makes you understand a lot of things. The more you're out there, even if you're just like playing around with friends or basking, I do a lot of basking as well because I think basking as well is just great. And the more you're out there and the more you get this interaction with people, even if it's just a smile and it's just like someone said, even if it's just one tune you play and someone comes up to you and is like, that tune was good, that you're like, okay, I've done a good job and that's good. So it's just gigging that you get to kind of understand that, and you get more confidence in like both ways, even just covering. I think doing, sorry, I just bragging about when you ask me questions, okay? So tell me to stop if you want to. But I think like I wouldn't have started writing my own tunes or doing what I do now if I wouldn't have done all those covers I did and gigging in bars and everything. I think that both experiences are just great because it led me to be like a certain person on stage and doing certain tunes,
Was there any sort of particular artists or other musicians that inspired you, especially with writing your own stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. Throughout the years, I played with loads of musicians, and it was funny because I didn't know the difference between major and minor. This is a great like it was, and I remember people, even drummers, coming up to me and being like, "This is a major, or this is a minor. You shouldn't like, there's a big difference." And I remember playing the guitar and like, because I wasn't good in theory, so I think that playing with other people, just even the guitarist doing one chord and me saying like, oh, that sounds great. What chord is that? And him showing me throughout the years, it was just great because I learned so much with other musicians. And it's just great how you, and even just gigging, like I was always like playing like in the streets or gigging with people, and every time I was just like calling out a different musician, even if it was like special guests, and every time I was learning something different. So definitely like never do anything alone, just always like play along with other people, co-write, like even jamming is just a great thing for me. Like, you just learn a lot because even if you're just chatting around, instead of being at a random theory lesson and then being like, okay, this is a pentatonic scale and this is whatever and this is that, but when you're with a musician and you're playing an actual song that you like and him explaining you, yeah, this is a chord and maybe you should do this and maybe you should do that, it goes right into your memory and you just catch it and then when you do other songs, you're like, oh, okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Interesting. So it's more like how the theory is applied rather than the actual theory itself in that sense. It's like the other way around. It's like, this is actually what I play. Now I'll
Yeah.
explain it to you rather than explaining it to you and then trying to play it.
Yeah. So like I literally learnt my theory 2 years ago in my first year in BIM because I didn't like, I always used to play, but I didn't know theory. So I used to do like a G chord or a G sus or any chord and I didn't know what it was because I just learnt it, so, and then when I learnt my theory, it's a basic theory, not a huge nerd of theory, but when I learnt my theory, it all came together and I was like, oh, okay, now I know what you. So now like the guitar is more a map to me. I remember a guitarist saying to me, like, imagine a map, like when you look all around the world and then you see like the different countries, that's your guitar. Once you know those countries, you know where to go. You know, like it's just 12 chords. You know, like you will know how to go. Like once you do one chord and you know just the minimum theory, you will know how to go on your guitar. And now on my guitar, if I do like a G chord or A minus, I know that further down there's another A minus, and I know that further up, you know, so it's just nothing extraordinary. But now that I studied like a minimum of theory, I'm like, oh, okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Why did you decide to go to BIM out of interest? I think it'd be good to hear, like, you know, because obviously you had all that experience gigging. Why did you feel the need to go and get like the education side of things?
Because music is what I want to do. You know, I didn't want to. There's a lot of struggle gigging, just gigging sometimes, because it's fun and it's great. But then you kind of, what if that finishes, you know, like what if that pub finds another musician that's better than you, which is great. And what if that wedding is not going to be the wedding anymore? And what if like that pub closes? You know, like we used to have I used to have like 3 gigs a night in one pub. And then one day that pub closed down, and it's like the day before, it's like, we're going to close. There's many things that can happen that you're relying on that. But there's other things that you're like, I want this to be my future. So I want this to be something that it's an education that people can be like, okay, I see what you have done here. So that's why it led me to go and study it and go to BIM, because I want something written down that I am a songwriter and then I have achieved this. So that's something in the future, even if I want to teach someone or I have to do something, I have it. Like I have an education, I have like something there being like, okay, Maria went here, you know? So that's the reason.
Definitely, and I guess outside of that as well, there's a huge networking side to it. You know, everyone I spoke to that goes to BIM, obviously, like the Bristol scene, the Brighton scene, where the two ones are amazing. What has been your experiences in the scene?
Well, let's say like my first year was great, but then because basically BIM gives you lots of gigs and gives you an opportunity to play in places that you would never imagine, like the Fleece and Bristol, Thekla, you know, the Trinity, and I played in all of those, which is great. You know, like you get in there and you're like, wow, this is amazing. You have a crowd, you know, like you have a stage, you have a proper sound, you know. Then it's great to get into BIM and to like meet in your lectures people that you kind of admire. Like there's great musicians in BIM, like Drew Morgan, who's like great, you know, like there's loads of them. There was I had one of my tutors, like Hazel Mill, that she's a keyboarder of Florence and the Machine as well. So I had like the opportunity to have a couple of lessons with her, like with the piano, and it's just amazing because you're like, yeah, these are proper musicians, you know, these people that know what they're talking about. And but unfortunately, the other side was that my second year of BIM was only online because of the pandemic. So yeah, there was like a slag of yeah, it was difficult because like it's just online, you know. And then obviously a musician, what can you learn in music online? Even though like obviously tutors like did their best to kind of like educate you, and BIM like did lots of things to make things happen for you, but obviously it was all online. So I did struggle my second year. Now that we're back to normal, it's all great, and I'm glad about that we're not online anymore, because I think being a musician and like having to do things online is not the same. You know, that you need to interact with people, you need to like be there.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not like an academic degree or something where you're just reading a book and writing an essay.
Yeah.
Like you actually need to be with someone learning, and you don't really pick up as much, you know, over video call. I mean, I've done a bit of drum teaching in the past, and doing that on a video call, it's not quite the same. You can
Yeah, it's not the
make the
same.
best of it, but it's not the same as being in the same room with someone.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because you have to see. It's like you go to a gig, you know, like you go gigging and you go to see this band, and then you see like a drummer that does a fill, and you're like, and you're a drummer and you're like, oh, I know what he's doing, you know, or a guitarist that does a solo, but then he goes, and you're looking at him, you're right there, and you're like, oh yeah, and a singer that does something, you know, you have to be there. You have to see it with your own eyes. Behind a screen is really difficult to kind of see or like observe, you know. So yeah, that's but it's kind of becoming a kind of new future now, as I'm seeing things even in the music industry. Things are getting very competitive and very difficult, you know. Like you have to be on it all the time. You have to be like ready for the kind of this digital future, because it's kind of scary sometimes. That does scare me sometimes. I have to be honest about that.
What are your thoughts on the digital future of music? You know, like, I mean, obviously there's social media, there's content side of things. Um, I feel like all musicians have to do it to some extent. Like, do you enjoy doing that side of things as one? And then two, like, what do you think is going to happen in the future with that side of things and also streaming?
So I hate social media. I mean, it's just like I know that you have to be on it if you're a musician. I know that there's like nowadays people scroll through your content in like 30 seconds. People don't listen to it. People give you 30 seconds literally. Like even Spotify, even if you look at the Spotify, you have like Discovery Weekly, right? And I go a lot on that because I always like to listen to new content, literally. And I like cleaning the house and just putting play on it and then just discovering new artists. But there's just like so much going on. There's so much going on. You know, there's people that are on it constantly. That you see people on social media just constantly like doing amazing stuff. I can't say that they're not, because they've got amazing videos, amazing content. They're just on it all the time, and I just can't see myself there, because I prefer going in the middle of the street, getting my guitar and showing what I've made of, or being on stage having a gig and then showing there my content, then getting my phone, putting it on a stand, and then being behind the phone and playing my tunes. It's just something and then I've struggled a lot. Like I've had managers being like, yeah, you have to be more on social media, you have to kind of do more this, and it's something I really struggle, because it gets you into this flow that afterwards you just need to see what other people's are doing as well, what things are going on. You know, you have to see like what that person has done, what that strategy is, and it just blows your mind. You're like, no, this is not doing music. So I think that it's good to be on social media, and it's good to kind of like give it a little bit of attention. I know it's going to be the future of it, because nowadays I have had literally people that say it doesn't matter the talent, they just see the amount of followers you have and the amount of content you have, and they just get you anyway. Even if you're shit, they just get you, and they're just like, yeah, we have the product, it's done, we don't need to do anything else, that's good. And that's the sad thing about kind of social media, how it's become, and how the digital world has kind of taken that over. Because before you had the real talent, before you had someone in the middle of the street that was like giving their soul, crying their eyes out because they needed it, they were hungry, you know. And now you don't see people are hungry anymore. Now people are just automatically in it, in that world, you know. And that's something, it's kind of like a balance. It's just something, yeah, probably you should do, because you need to put yourself out there, but it's something that has taken away a lot of originality in music nowadays. You know, like people don't have time for originality nowadays. People don't have time for that talent. Everything is already done. You know, he has what, 20,000 followers. Yeah, he's got 1,000 likes every post. Yeah, we'll have him. You know, that's kind of describe how things are working nowadays, more or less. And that's a sad part of it, because they just put auto tune on him and that's done. You know,
Yeah,
so
I was going to say that's the bit that's kind of made it even worse in a sense. Like how music's got more and more polished. You know, like all
yeah,
the record companies and that, like everything's so compressed, all the life's out of it. There's auto-tune in all the pop songs. That
yeah.
coupled with social media, it makes it less of an experience, I guess, for a listener, and also for an artist. It's not quite the same connection.
No, like let's do an example of drummers. Now that you're the drummer, just make an example. How many tunes now are recorded with real drum? Like barely. Like it's really rare, unless you're like a rock band. But even there, it's like really difficult, because it's just like, no, we don't have time to like put a drum into a studio for like 2 hours and like record all the drums and then compress them and mix them. Let's just do like a let's just put a sample drum, you know, and then you just hear these drums Lee's like, you go on the radio now and you just hear that kick with like an extra reverb, and you hear that snare that just goes forever, and you're like, you don't feel it anymore. You don't feel the Doors or the Beatles. You don't feel the Who. You don't feel the drummer, and you're like, when even that drummer makes that feel, or the live versions, even live versions anymore, you don't feel it anymore. You don't hear them, and that's the sad part. Even like, I go in the studio, the last album that I recorded, there's loads of mistakes that I made in the voice, but they kind of like kind of scratchy, and this voice came out a little bit wrong, but that's a good thing of it, you know. That's good when you're in like the studio and you're with a band and you record, and then something new comes out, and that's the good thing about recording. That's a good feeling. And not now that you have to kind of like pop music, sometimes you do the verse, you cut it, and then you do it again, and then you cut it. You don't even record the whole song anymore, you know. Everything is like cut, like, okay, let's cut this part, let's do that. And yeah, that because you can't feel it anymore. There's like, even nowadays, I listen to the radio and I'm like, no, this is not the feeling anymore. And that's a shame. Unless you're on Adele, that you kind of prove. I have a huge respect for Adele, but you prove like you can sing, and you prove that you can write hits, and then you do a 4-minute song, which is Easy on Me, which no song now on radio come out. They're like I think they give you 2-minute 50. And then she gives a 4-minute song, and just like, there you go, this is a 4-minute song. I'm not going to make it 2 minutes. This is a 4-minute song. Fuck you. This is a good tune. And there you go. But before that, she did like loads of tunes for them to do, for her to be able to do that today, you know? So it's very difficult now. Even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the music industry in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years has changed so much.
Interesting. So talk about maybe like your own battle with like whether to make a song commercialized or make it really artistic. You know, do you ever try and make it more commercialized to get more listeners, or is it kind of like a balance in between the two?
So I've always been a pop kind of lover. I like my pop songs, and I am a bit like the producer, I don't know, Max Martin, that it's all about the hooks. So I do believe there need to be a hook somewhere for a song to be interesting. But that's my pop thing talking. But I do respect, there's lots of genres. I have a friend of mine, she's based in Bristol as well. She is very jazz wise and R&B, and she does her hooks in her own way, very different from any other artist, like, and she jumps out from the pop scene. That makes it great. So I do think that you kind of have to have a balance. You kind of have to have you kind of have to give something that is not usual. You kind of have to show your artistic way, you know. You have to, like, so I have kind of, you have to recognize that as well. So like, I have my voice, and I know my voice is kind of like different than any other voice, but you can have a guitar that's different than, you know, like everyone has their own thing, and that's great. But you have to kind of like show them, and you have to find that out as well. And it's very difficult for you to find that out, that that's your artistic way and that's your style, and that's what makes it different. So yeah, it is all about the hooks, but it is something about the hook that you have to make it different, you know. So we can't just base ourselves on like the chord progressions or whatever the pop standards tell you. You have to do something new, and you have to do something that is like, wow, this is different, or this is something similar to, but your own way. So I think that is something very important to do.
How did you go about finding your own style and voice then? You know, because I know it takes time to develop, but did you certainly hit a point where you were like, oh, this is it? Do you know what I mean? This is my sound, or is it constantly developing?
No, I think it's constantly developing. I'm still now like, you always have to learn and reflect on what you do. You know, like every sound, every year is different. Like I did my first tune was Stand Up, and it was all about the voice and the layouts of the voice, and that what made the song great. But then I did another tune track Tonight, that was all like orchestral arrangement, but obviously even the song itself was good. But you always need to figure that out. I'm still figuring it out, you know, like I still write tunes and I'm like, no, this is not it. Yeah, like this is not. I used to be more like, yeah, fuck it, just put it out there. Like you need to put it out there. But now this new album that I'm about to release, I'm like, no, this needs to be good, because I've already put content out there and I've already did mistakes, which at the time were not mistakes, but now I think they're mistakes I have to improve. So I just think you just have to like kind of put yourself into doubt a bit, but then reflect on what you did and then just think of what you can do better. But we're always, you know, we're always kind of like, we're always getting better, and we're always kind of like saying like, okay, what can I do better next time? And what can I do better today? What did I do that was wrong, you know? And then you get the feedback of people being like, oh, this tune was good, but you know, that tune that I think you could do a little bit more. And then you kind of like get that feedback and you're like, okay, all right, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. And then you do better. So I think that we should never stand on to one point and be like, yeah, this is the way it is always. No, you should like develop them. And then me for the voice, it took me a while because I didn't have the theory of my voice. You know, I didn't know. I was like, you know, when you kind of shout to get those notes, you kind of shout out high, the high notes. But now I know how to like do those high notes, but without shouting, without being like a Janis Joplin in the situation, which before was great, but nowadays it's like, nah, too much screaming. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. But we always should kind of like study more, and we always should do better. That's my thought of it.
Talk to me about the new album. What was the songwriting process, the recording process like, and when can we hear it?
So let me just charge my computer because it's all right. Sorry about that. So my new album is going to be called Exorbitant, because basically I came out with this word because kind of like what we were talking about until now. There's nowadays, in my opinion, there's an excess of things. Everything we all want to reach the excess. You know, we're never happy with what we have. You know, so we're always running. We always want more, and this is kind of like what's going on nowadays. You know, like we've got an iPhone 6. I want an iPhone 7. You know, we've got an Air Force. I want the Air Force One. You know, so this is kind of like things that are going on. You know, like anything, like you can name it, and you just want more because there's so much that the world is giving you nowadays. You just want it all. You got 50 quid more in your wallet. You're like, why not? I'm just gonna buy it. So yeah, that's why it's called Exorbitant, because we're kind of, in my opinion, again, these are all my thoughts. I don't want to be critical and all this, you know, it's just my opinions. I don't want to be like, yeah, this is like it. My opinion, like we kind of forget the simplicity of things. Kind of forget that, just like, I don't know, your classical guitar, and that's it, how it can make you happy just sitting outside and playing with your guitar without having a phone there that records it, you know? Like it's good just to go out without your phone and just having a walk, you know, without having to like take a selfie or just like having to show the whole world that you're having a walk. It's good to be with ourselves without anything else. It's good to like go for a walk, you know, in the sunset and looking at the sunset ourselves with our own eyes. You know, it's good to use CDs. You know, it's good to like put a CD on, you know, from your dad's CD, and without saying like, yeah, that's old, you know, like it's good. It's some physical things are like losing itself. So now that's why Exorbitant came out, because it's excess. And that's why my tunes are going to be like, they're more about talking about freedom of ourselves, how we have to set ourselves free in many things, how we shouldn't be tied to many things, and how things shouldn't be rushed, especially how it talks about, the next album talks about many things, many objects, but I do make it kind of universal, and I do make it kind of like in a good positive way. You know, everything is not negative. You know, this is nothing that to be kind of concerned about. You know, you can just wake up tomorrow morning and throw your phone out the window. Who fucking cares? You know, it's just a choice that you make. You know, it's just something that you're like, yeah, I'm done. Fuck it. You know, so yeah, that's a new album. It talks about many, it brings out many subjects, but that's the kind of the whole theme about it.
Sounds great. I completely agree with you on that. The time's really flown by in this one. We're actually
Okay.
nearly out of time now, but you've got an open reign at the end. So is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with as we close out?
No, I just want to, yeah, if you want to listen to my previous album, it's on Spotify. It's called Feelings. Meri is Meri. Instagram as well, or Facebook, whatever, all the social media that we use nowadays. Talking about it now, I'm advertising it. But yeah, thank you very much, Daniel, for inviting me to this podcast. I appreciate it. And
No, it's been great to have you.
thank you very much. Happy New Year to you all. I wish that this year will be better. They all are, but let's just say that. Let's just say
that. Sounds good. No, I completely agree. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks, Meri. Take care.
Take care. See ya. Bye.